Welcome everyone to round 2 of International Racing Team's NLS 3-hour series. We are back after 2 weeks for the second round of multiclass madness on the Green Hell. I'm Tommy Kutashi and I will be your host today for this race. Just very briefly about the event, this 3-hour series serves as a qualification for our upcoming Nürburgring 24-hour race we will hold in September. I will tell a little bit more about that qualification process later. And as the qualification, the qualifying for the actual race is already underway, I say let's switch there and see the middle of the action. So it will be Muiku Motorsports who will finish the first lap. This is everyone's out lap with a very brief 25-minute qualifying session. Based on what we learned on the first round, this is enough for the drivers for about 2 laps. So they really don't have that much room to make any mistakes. They have very little window to make a lap that will put them onto their desired very high position on the grid. As I'm looking at the standings, we have a whopping 30 GT3 cars today on the grid. At least right now on track, accompanied by 5 TCRs and 1 lonely GT4. Will certainly make some interesting moments. We also saw at the last round that the times you will see here, even for pole position laps, you might see, or, well, I think, in my opinion, you will definitely see times that will be just much better on the race, because, as I said, drivers here only have 25 minutes, and it's a multi-class qualifying, so it's that has an extra layer of difficulty for everyone to manage traffic and try to push the best lap time they can of the cars. So during the 3-hour race, we saw that many drivers have just enough room, enough free air, so they can post pretty mental lap times. So I say let's explore, while we're waiting for the first lap times to get in, let's explore the other classes other than GT3 we have. As I said, we have a handful of TCR machinery, fortunately, on the track. And it's lovely to see plenty of new names and new faces, along with people who were participating in the race in the first run. The qualification for the 24-hour race happens in a per-person basis, importantly, not a per-team basis, so we might see drivers of the same team, different drivers of the same team participating in rounds of our 3-hour championship. The rules for the qualification are, by the way, pretty simple. in order to be eligible for the NLS 24-hour race, you need to complete at least 2 of these 7 NLS 3-hour races with less than 20 incident points to your name and less than 5 laps of gap behind your class leader, not the overall leader, of course. As we saw from the first round, these criteria are not that hard to nail. The vast majority of the drivers got eligibility on their first rounds, in the sense that if they complete this round like they completed the first one, they will already be eligible to compete on the 24-hour race. And we can already see a little clash between TCR and GT3 at about halftime in qualifying. That's why I said everyone is trying to push the absolute best lap time of their machinery all at once on the track, and it can certainly create tense moments like this. The Corvette was flashing their lights like crazy for the TCR. I wonder if any other GT4 challengers will show up before the start of the race, as currently we only have Potato Racing with Vincent Meyer behind the wheel. Quite an easy cheat code to take the pole position for him right now, at least. In the first run, the qualifying results of especially the GT3 category was pretty close at the front of the grid. We had P2 0.387 seconds behind the pole position. Also, third position 0.213 behind P3, so an even closer gap. And just 99 thousandths were separating the fourth position for third position. So the front of the GT3 pack was pretty closely stacked, and that also stood for during the race. As far as I saw, unfortunately, for Fun Sim Racing, who got the pole position on the first round and was leading the race for a pretty long time until they got a very unfortunate DNF, are not here. So we'll see another pollster, which very easily could be on Miku Motorsports, who are spectating right now. They scored a second position on the race, and have some pretty darn fast Finnish drivers behind the wheel. Actually, I see that they started with three GT3 cars for this round instead of rolling in one. They just kind of separate themselves. A 3-hour race is pretty, I'm not saying pretty easily, but pretty steadily doable. Solo, so it's just understandable. So with about 1 lap worth time remaining from qualifying, let's see what the first time will be from Tony Miller from Milky Motorsports number 3 behind the wheel, and 83.9. Now, he had quite a bit of clean air during this lap, and seemingly no traffic. He just beat the absolute record lap time for this series. It's a very strong start to his qualifying and a very clear message for all the other GT3 challengers. So Wild Ones number 13, another team that we could already meet in the first round, are approaching the start-finish line, and Mad Lab Crisis got second, and Wild Ones got third, provisional third position, of course, with lap times that are quite far from pole position. Miller was really ripping the asphalt with that 83.9. And not too much of our surprise that his teammate actually managed to ditch P2, and Aero Lapila in the Milky Motorsports number 2 team is in P4 currently. I mean, let's also not forget about these guys, Saturn Res Tech, who in the previous round went for the GT4 category and actually logged out pole position and a win at the race, and I see now that they are trying themselves in the GT3 category. And I would not at all be surprised if we saw these guys be very close to the race lead, or the pole position during this qualifying session. I'm just trying to find them on the timing screen to see which driver is behind the wheel. It's Simone Iazzi, who he was they were qualifying on the last round. So it's only PCR, I think, at least, in which we are still waiting for the first lap to roll in, which will be posted by IRT Sandiar Racing, with Michal Sendersky behind the wheel. We can see an 8:56. What seems to be an invalid lap, as if it does not appear on the leaderboard, that means that he had went off track out of the limits. It's very unfortunate, looking at how short this qualifying session is. So we got to sit along Adam Kasuni, who did not post a lap time in the qualifying session of the first time, but doesn't let you fool you. This guy is a menace behind the wheel. He got from P4 to the first position. Ooh, a little too much curb on that corner. So he got to the first position from starting 4th in the first race. And he actually went to win with a 2-minute 19-second gap to second place. So all other challengers in DCR will very certainly have a tough time of catching this guy or defending against him at the start, depending on what position he will secure in this qualifying session. So Davi Fernandez, another challenger from who actually won round 1 in the GT3 category, has jumped up to the second place, being separated only by about 0.2 of a second from Muiki Motorsports number 3. Again, we're looking at a pretty close finish for the GT3 pole position. Oh, and mistake in the carousel from Muiki Motorsports with Jimmy Nizula behind the wheel. Jumped right back to the pits. Well, there, that might be it for his qualifying session. He definitely does not have enough time to go and do another lap. So he will not improve on that 8 minute 5 second 1 second behind P2. So it could be up to Muiki Motorsports number 2 to still help them maybe go up and lock out 3 of the top 4 positions for the Finnish squad. We're still waiting. Oh, because you're going a bit slower than necessary, let's just say that. We might get to see no times posted by any of the DCR entries. That's certainly a new and a very interesting thing to see. So we have just gone past the 25-minute mark for the qualifying. Everyone only has time to finish the current lap they are on. Currently, it's Tadam Deck who is leading the GT3 category with an 8-minute 3.3. Behind them, Muiki Motorsports number 3 with an 8-minute 3.7 time, and Davi Fernandez with an 8-minute 4 second 1:16. Sorry. Still no times. No times will be posted in TCR. At least Kasuni can still just go around the track, and basically any time he will do without going out of the track will just lift him to pole position. And it's the one on the Quotator Racing and GT4 who will surely get the pole position in the GT4 category. The road time is actually not that bad. 5:57 would have lifted them to the 3rd position less time.
1 of Track Motorsports, meaning that they will not go, the number 2 squad that is, they will not go for a better position from P7. So far as I see, we only have now a handful or a dozen of GT3s with no lap times posted so far. So we're eyeing with Krzysztof Karpati with the No Grip Motorsport Porsche 992. And Will, he was also an entrant who last time was competing in a GT4 category, now taking the step up to faster GT3 cars. Let's see if he can improve. I mean, not improve, but post in lap time. A 8:27, which was enough to lift him up 2 positions. Oh, I'm just about to say that RR Performance will be the next entrant to cross the finish line, so we only have 3 more GT3 drivers, with Sham Racing leading the pack for the finish of the qualifying session. Noticing a pattern here that I see, not all, but the majority of TCR and GT4 competitors from the first round actually going with GT3 machinery. It's a curious phenomenon. As far as I know, for the 24-hour race, qualification is actually not dependent on car class. So drivers can complete the criteria in any class they desire. They are not logged into the one they selected for their first race.
So we will shortly see Hampshire racing in the hands of Soslembe Goldenberg, getting that precious lap time. Trying to see on the timing where this guy actually jumped up to. P16, Goldenberg scored a P16. Not too shabby, not too bad. So we have Slow as Fun, hands of Ralph Sernavskis. Also one of the podium sitters, at least on the qualifying session of the first round. It would be surprising to see a good lap time from this guy, and 8:11.5, making him going into the top 10 for the race start. And as BMS also crossed the finish line, let's just take a look at how the qualifying rounded up. So in GT3 category, it was Tadon Restek who could post the fastest time around the Nürburgring with an 8 minute 3.37, closely followed by Muku Motorsports number 3, whose other squad also could finish in the top 4, with Davi Fernandes separating the two cars. In P5, it's International Racing Team. And just quickly going through the other categories in GT4, the only lap time posted by Potato Racing is as I said, pretty half decent 8 minute 57.2. And in TCR, no one seemed to have been able to get a valid lap time under their belt, so they'll need to play it out on the racetrack. So we have about 15 seconds until the race will start. We are having a rolling start procedure, so cars will only step on it when the GT3 leaders actually reach the start line. And it's green, green, green for the second round of the NLS 2-hour series, with Davi Fernandes already going side by side, actually 3 wide into the first corner from the top 3 qualifiers. And someone, they could get it through that very tight section of the track in one piece. It was certainly marvelous to see. so the number 3 squad of Muku Motorsports could ditch the second position immediately from the... Oh no, sorry, actually they got back it from David Fernandez after the first corner, so we are back in the top 3 to the qualifying results. Just as the last time, I just say it's a huge trail of BMW M4s, which is just as the last time right now is the by far the most popular car choice for this track. But I also saw some pretty, let's say, exotic picks. We will, of course, take a look at them and discover them in the later parts of the race. As we see the first drivers of the pack driving onto the exciting section of the Nordschleife. There's already a clash between Muku Motorsports and International Racing Team, and the Finnish squad also almost went out of the track. Actually did go out, but they did not have a spin and defended their 4th position from Daniel Spohn in the IRT car. And there was some trouble for, if I saw it correctly, it was Fisher Racing getting entangled with some of the TCRs in the back of the pack. Also Maverick Motorsports and it was Wellington and Ricke team who had some troubles with the start in the GT3 category. They will need to fight through the TCR field. Fortunately for them, we don't have that large of a number of TCRs, so they will be able to relatively quickly get back to the GT3 pack, unless they've got some damages, that is. Yeah, as I mentioned, the only non-BMW entry so far in the top 10 is this beautiful Nissan GTR from Play Riders. Trying to take a quick look at what exact position these guys qualified in. They got up from P16 to the 10th position. It's quite a respectable feat from the Nissan squad. Currently being driven by Robert Neuberger. The field is already kind of spreading out while we are on the last third of our first lap. Obviously, as we have a 3-hour race here, it might be wise to just reserve some of your energy for the remainder of the race, especially if you are a solo entrant. Because 3 hours on any random racetrack is doable. 3 hours in the Nordschleife, doable also, but just several times more exhausting on your body and your mind. There's a little train forming for... Oh, and it was Muki Motorsports, number 2, went out of the track and lost their positions. So it's mid-lap crisis up to P5. They are now being closely followed by Slow as Fun and Junior Racing Team. We are slowly but really a little off track by one of the BMWs. Could save it. That was just on the verge of losing the back of the car. So we are approaching the last section of the track, so people will have the time to take a deep breath after that first lap. See Wild Ones, number 3, going for it from the slipstream. Excellent opportunity. Of course, the Dotinga Rehoa is, if you can get the last corner right, then it's free real estate for you. But the Nissan actually comes back. It's one of the GT3 cars with actually one of the best top speeds, so the play riders will definitely make many use of that. Just so not to forget, we are having a multi-class race here. In the TCR category, the field is much more spread out than the GT3 challengers are. It's only Vascular Phantoms A and Siren Speed Demons pretty close to each other. Just trying to steal as much tow from the GT3 as they can, trying to get away from Siren Speed Demons, but still was not enough. And ooh, the Cupra goes on the grass. A bit risky situation with the GT3 in between the two cars. We'll have to be very mindful about each other. This is just the first lap of the race. Oh, the BMW most certainly had some damages, because they're going to pit immediately. As Pullover Racing, and they also got a stop-and-go penalty, 10 seconds for going in the pit lane a tad bit too fast. Not a good start for them. Also, our performance got a drive-through. So people are already having troubles with penalties on the very beginning of the race. Might be better to, arguably, to take those in the very beginning of the race rather than the end. They have still a bit less than 2 hours and 15 minutes for recover for the mistakes. And Muiki Motorsports number 7 is still having a siege for getting that P5 from a mid-lap crisis. being right on the gearbox of that BMW ahead of them. Actually, oh, I thought for a moment I thought they will be daring to do a side by side on that flying section of the track. Seemingly both drivers are faster than that, but now they are side by side. And Nizulek could easily just use the slipstream to pass O'Brien and get himself the 5th position. It's also pretty marvelous to see that Munich Motorsports number 3 in the hands of Tony Miller is still right on the back of Tajon Restag. The two race leaders are steadily getting farther and farther away from the track, having a more than 5 seconds gap ahead of the 3rd position. It's a very smart tactic, actually, to not start fighting immediately, but to just reside behind the leader in their slipstream for as much as they can, and in the moment you have gathered enough gap behind you, you can go for it and go start fighting without risking the person behind you capitalizing on you two losing time for fighting. And especially on a track like this with very narrow track and very little room for error, it's basically a tiny patch of grass and walls if you go out of the track. It's very important to be mindful on where you make your overtakes. So Wild Ones number 13 actually got away from Play Riders, who are being challenged by Tornado E Motorsport for the 10th position. Importantly, in the points, it's actually the first 9 positions who score points for the championship, which is honestly not much of a focus with this series. It's mainly serving for qualification. Muki Motorsports is also going up on international racing team to go back to the 4th position where they actually qualified. I wouldn't be surprised if the IRT driver would not agree on that very easily. Also in TCR category, Sirens Speed Demons is going after a Vazares Racing team for the 3rd position in their class. We're trying to keep an eye out on both the battles. And the Milky Motorsports car will be very close to IRT from behind, and yet again it will be the slipstream which will be decisive. They're going side by side, and yes, it sorry, it didn't. My live timing didn't refresh itself, but Mugen Motorsports has gone back to P4 and retained the position they scored at qualifying. So now Siren Speed Demons is on the bumper of Evazor's racing team. Behind the wheel is James Leapart for the white Cupra, who scored a second position on the last round. It was actually the only TCR entrant who was still within a lap behind the leader Cassoni at the end of the race. And is now going for the inside at the Mini Carousel. As might have actually gave a little fright to the Spanish team as they went a bit wide out on the grass. What matters for the Speed Demons is that they are up to the podium, the last podium position. But they have quite a hefty gap behind the second position, being 20 seconds behind IRT SNDR Racing. It's in TCR, it's actually two IRT squads locking out the front two positions. And these two guys can still not leave each other alone. Daniel Spohn will definitely look and try to get back that fourth position from Miku Motorsports. And David Fernandez in P3 might have had some problems because the two people behind him we were spectating are reaching him pretty swiftly. Some of the BMW is up to pace, so no damage to that car, but still there are no two very fierce challengers trying to get that podium position for him. Miku Motorsports already trying with some attacks. So it will be a three-way fight for the third position, just 20 minutes in the race in the GT3 category. Also, mid-lap crisis in the background isn't that far behind, and Miku Motorsports actually went and were taking the Fernandez, who goes on the grass for a little bit. We'll need to check his windows for International Racing Team, who also come blazing fast behind him. Which might be good news for Miku Motorsports, who can be hoping for the two guys behind him having a fight so they can get away, maybe having a chase for their teammates or squad mates. So far, only the number 2 squad of the Muiku Motorsports roster can fully get the hang of the race, being on P9 currently. Let's not forget we are only 23 minutes into a 3-hour race. And Daniel Spoon also gets a hold on David Fernandez, now the Brazilian driver being down to P5 from holding third position. As I said, Midlap Crisis is rapidly approaching behind him, already being less than a second. And something must have happened to Fernandes, as being this slow was not a thing we could see from him on the previous run. It might have been wrong after all with the car having some sort of damage, or it could just be the mental pressure from making a mistake. We will see if he goes to the pits or not. Back to the battle for the 10th position. Player riders are still not letting Tornado Racing go. GTR will still take up quite the space in the BMW's mirrors, approaching the last part of the track. It is very lovely to see a Nissan GTR being used, especially on the Nordschleife, as they go for a little lawn mowing. Will certainly not do well for their fight for P10. So what I was about to say is that, unfortunately, you cannot really see this car kind of being obsolete on the real-life GT3 grounds, but it's lovely to see it being alive and well, at least in the sim. An international racing team actually went and got the third position from Miku Motorsports, who are also suspiciously slow. Might have been some mistake by them, losing 2 positions right at the beginning of this straight section. And slowly but surely, Tadram Restek in the GT3 lead is getting away from the number 3 Muki Motorsports car. And yes, just as suspected, David Fernandez is going in the pits. There is certainly something wrong with that BMW, so Ralph Cernevskis from Slow as Fun is up to P6. The Muki Motorsports squad is seeming to get that pace back, tailing the mid-lap crisis car in the GP section. Lots of position changes happening in the top 5 of the GT3 field. So Jimmy Nizula is stealing those stands from Leo O'Brien right out of him, trying to get the for position back. The Milky Motorsports squad is at least the one without the number, with Jimmy Nizula behind the wheel. Has been now going back and forth around their qualifying position. We are getting very close to the orange BMW. Definitely within striking distance. Let's see where Zula will be daring to go for it and get the 4th position. The sooner the better will be for him, because IRT is getting farther and farther the more these two guys are fighting. And we're seeing all potential podium sitters right here, so still everyone is absolutely on for the fight for the top 3 position, at least the 3rd one, surely, as the top 2 challengers are now more than 25 seconds ahead of the rest of the pack. Zula is right on the tail of O'Brien. The very slow and technical section of the track. You can also see plenty of teams embarking on their mandatory long pit stops. It might be a spin or damage, or I would be surprised if it would be some sort of tactic to get rid of the pit stop this early in the race. And so far, after the GT4 win after the first race, Titan Restek is absolutely dominating for 30 minutes the GT3 as well, as Milky Motorsports is going from the outside overtake on mid-lap crisis and goes around the orange BMW and requires that 4th position, although O'Brien will certainly keep themselves close to the Finnish driver. I'm also seeing now steering mouse having a chase for play riders. AMG versus GTR battle we are about to see very shortly. We didn't really see steering mouse with Paulo Henrique behind the wheel so far, so it's certainly cool to see him getting closer to the top 10 of the race. Especially looking at that, he actually qualified on the 28th position in GT3, so pretty marvelous performance from Brazilian driver so far. And if he can just keep himself close enough to that Nissan in the next few corners, he will definitely be able to get a shot, or at least get a bit closer to play racing. Play riders, excuse me. While, let's not forget about Muki Motorsports getting closer to international racing team. So we'll very easily see a fight for the third position in the top category. The sneakily Tadem Restech yet again posted a fastest lap. An 8 minutes 5, pretty strong lap time. They have quite a bit of clean air behind them. I mean, not that much, with Muki Motorsports being a bit more than 2 seconds, but still enough not to be worried too much from getting an attack from the Finnish squad anytime soon. That 2 second, about 2.34 second gap behind the leaders had been pretty steady throughout the past few 10 minutes of the race. But the fate of the third position is still absolutely up for grabs. One little mistake for Muki Motorsports, taking that curb a little bit too greedily. It's good news for IRT, they can have a little breath. Also, it did not cause that much of a harm to Muki Motorsports' space, as they still have a little dance with the rear of the car on the exit of that fast right-hander. So I see Muki Motorsports number 2 getting ahead of Wild Ones 13 for 7th position. We're seeing a lot of action from the 3 cars of the Finnish team during the race in the top 10 of the GT3 category. I'm very curious at what positions these 3 guys will round up at the very end of the race. Missoula is absolutely banking it behind NLS Spawn, trying to get past the German driver. So I already said this this part of American Motorsports, or this driver, have gone just back and forth between attacking for the podium positions and recovering for. Oh, and Spawn goes wide. That's an excellent chance for Milky Motorsports. Very crucial mistake from International Racing Team, which resulted in Nizola getting his hands on the podium position. He has a 30-second gap, however, ahead of him, so the threat from behind him is, at least currently, certainly larger than as much he's a threat for his teammate in P2. Also, similarly, steering mouse A2, not just play riders, but also Tornado E Motorsports, currently taking the 9th position and being 14 seconds behind Wild Ones, number 13 in the 8th position. So already almost 20 positions made by this guy. It's pretty crazy. So after 40 minutes, we are having, at least in the lead positions, a bit of chill, but not that much in the back of the GT3 pack, with Victus Racing making use of TCR traffic and making a move on Fisher Racing. Sorry, that might have been actually Posto Rosso Racing Team. Yes, it was. My bad. Quite a bit of trouble these BMWs are having with that TCR, which is the Elantra is looking pretty rough. Ooh, and Matrena from Mr. Rosso went out the track. Ooh, and pretty large hit from the barrier. The car just positively flew away from the track. And not just being overtaken, but also losing the car, and car might have some suspension damages. It seems to be kind of difficult for Matrenov to keep the car on a straight line. Unfortunate ending for the battle for the Russian driver. I did mention unique car choices at the beginning of the race, and Wellington and the team of Wellington and Rika is certainly sporting one of them. It's rare. The Corvette is a rare sight among the competitors for the NLS series. If I recall correctly, no, actually, this is the only Chevy on the track currently. P15. Oh, excuse me, P13, that is. But the BMW is actually 1 second behind them, so we might be in for a fight shortly between these two guys. Also, the Porsche of the Burr Pro team is rapidly approaching Almost Motorsports for a fight for P15. It's very lovely to see people having clashes for these positions, not necessarily for just podiums and lead positions, but people take this competition really seriously, even if they are not on the front of the pack. It's always lovely to see, honestly, any sort of racing. Ooh, and Raska behind the wheel of the Porsche goes a little wide. Still, he's more than close enough to that Mercedes to be an annoyance for them. Wouldn't be surprised if I saw a move from the Porsche in the current lap. It's lovely to see two cars with such a different but such unique and lovely soundtracks. The screaming flat six of the 992 following the rumbling V8 of that AMG. It's certainly two among the best sounding current gen GT3 machines. Actually making them a fan favorite lots of times, pretty understandably. Well, that might have been the most unfortunate camera switch, as we just missed the Porsche of Burpro, passing the Almost Motorsports AMG for 14th position. But the pass did happen safe and sound, so it seems. The Corvette we were spectating a while ago actually is reaching P11. Wellington Enrique is gathering those positions. Now behind family team, being driven by Gege Vince. So we might see a Chevy versus Porsche fight quite soon. Yeah, quite far from the top 10 family team, tailing Tornado E Motorsports with 30 seconds. The same distance separating the third and second positions in GT3, so the field is certainly stretching out more and more as we go deeper and deeper into the race. Let's see if the Corvette can steal enough slipstream for the Porsche to be anywhere close for an overtake by the end of the middle of the straight. Porsche driver certainly tries to kind of break the slipstream to make the job of the Chevy driver harder. I think they can call it a success family team, as Wellington Enrique was not being able to get a hold on their position. as they drive into the pits. So, being on different strategies as the Corvette team is. Yes, now we are definitely hitting the interval. Actually, we might be at the end of the interval in which the first pit stops of every team should be happening. And not meaning the long pit stops, but just the regular you're out of fuel ones. If you take a peek at the TCR standings, well, I said the spread out, it's even more right. So for the TCR category, the competitors being very far from each other. Still very interesting that none of the TCR competitors had been able to set just a single valid lap during the qualifying session, but it seems like this is how the power rankings go, with IRT Athletic Sim Racing leading the category ahead of IRT SNDR Racing, with them Kasoni and Michał Sendersky in this order, with Siren Speed Demons being in third position, with James Leapart behind the wheel. As I already mentioned, Leapart was actually ended the race in the second position in the first run, but the IRT cars in TCR seeming to be multiplicating each race. And ooh, and he goes off the track and has a knock with the wall as we are taking a look at him. Yes, those last two right-handers before the long straight can be somewhat tricky as they have a slight banking in them. So it's actually kind of easy to lose the car, especially towards the outside of the track. And the Speed Demons now go in the pits. So there's some action shaping up in GT3 between P13 and P14, Almost Motorsports and No Grip Motorsports. The latter of which was a GT4 entrant in the last race, excuse me. So the Porsche driver Krzysztof Karpati was actually steering a Chevrolet Camaro GT4 in the last race. It's also, as well as the Corvette, a pretty exotic car choice with a very lovely soundtrack as well. Now, the Hungarian driver seems to go for good sounding cars in all categories. Ooh, loses it. That Porsche can be very sketchy at the rear with that mid-engine layout. The AMG is certainly on the more stable side of with the weight of the huge engine toward near the front axle. Just less than 2/10 of a second separating the two cars, and the AMG going on the grass a bit. They can consider themselves lucky there was no accident from this overtake, but taken through pretty aggressively but fairly by Carpati for gathering, was it 13th position. And Tedrum Restek is pitting from the GT3 lead, going for their first pit stop in the race. So virtually Muki Motorsports will take the lead from them. Of course, only for as long as they don't embark on their very own pit stop as well. Also ahead of the two guys we were just taking a look at, BMS and Wellington Enrique are getting closer and closer to each other. So from this team as well, Bravos Motorsports, we also saw the duo of Sirenio Ramos and Maximiliano Braga, with Ramos behind the wheel currently on the first run. They could score a 10th position at the end of the first race. It'd be a pretty consistent race. Currently they are going to attack the Corvette for P11. So right now they are looking for a sort of similar result. Quite a bit of the GT3 teams are going for their first pit stops, so the field will be a little mixed up. Maybe they will even meet some of the slower traffic coming out of the pits. Actually, quite a bit of the GT3 teams, well, I mean, almost half of the GT3 teams have done their long pit stops, getting that out of their way pretty early. I think many of them were just damage control, however, because no one up until P13 have gone for the long stops yet. P14, excuse me. Actually, I don't know for GT3, but I did see TCR pit stops at least taking a full tank of fuel being slow enough to actually qualify as a long pit stop. So if later in the race we see PCR drivers getting multiple long pit stops, that's not necessarily because of any mistakes or damage. It's just the virtual pit crew is working rather slowly sometimes. So steering mouse is tailing no grip motorsport. Ooh, going on a high, curb a little much. Many of these curves on this track are pretty much a no-go with these cars. They can throw you just out of the track and into a wall very easily. You need to be very mindful of that. We are seeing a lot of AMG versus Porsche clashes today. I think that seems to be a recurring pattern. I remember seeing this on the first round a lot of times as well. Steering mouse being less than 0.3 of a second behind no grip motorsport. Also, let's bear in mind that the leader from the TCR class, IRT Atheron Motorsport, was in the pits too. So TCRs are also going for the pit stops. I'm interested to see some people choosing just slightly different strategies, maybe trying some undercuts or overcuts to get a strategic advantage on their opponents. So basically overtaking something, or sorry, someone not on track, but by taking a faster in lap or out lap before or after the pits. The field will mix up nice and well after that steady first hour of the race. Steering mouse is overtaking no grip motorsports. Behind that ECR, very nice traffic handling by all of the participants here. It was very neatly done by all the drivers. It's very lovely to see these moves being made so cleanly. The speed difference between the GT3s and the DCRs is absolutely whooping, so both of them have to be very mindful of each other. Oh, and Muki Motorsports got a stop and go penalty, 10 seconds for speeding in the pit lane. Interesting to see such a mistake from a team performing so well. as they go for their pit stop as well. Will certainly hurt them in the long run. So with the TCR field also going for some reveals and tire changes. Currently it's IRT SMD are racing in the pack, as IRT at Torque Sim Racing went for the pits in one of the previous laps. We've been tailing Adam Cassoni for quite a while now. And oh, just for a little off track, that Elantra is also quite a bit banged up. The Vazora's Racing team is also in the pits in the TCR category. Now, slow but surely, each GT3 and TCR competitor will take their pit stops. So the field, everyone in the field will be back on fighting for their actual positions. I see quite a bit of stop and goes for all the teams. Seems like the pit entry is tricking a lot of our competitors today. Oh, a little off track by Tornado E Motorsports, who were sitting in P10, far as I remember, before the pit stops, or around the position at least. The Almost Motorsports got around them very easily. BMW taking a little excursion in the grass. Hopefully for them no damage is done. Now I also see that Play Riders with the Nissan GTR also got back to the top 10 after all the pit stop bonanza was done. International Racing Team in the 8th position currently is closing in on steering mouse, with the AMG on the 7th position currently. Gap is down to less than 3 seconds. And if I saw correctly, the AMG took that corner a little suspiciously slowly. Might have been a little tour on the outside part of the track. As the IRT car now in the hands of Kritos Papanastasiou, so driver swap done by the squad. They are closing in for P7. So long stop and driver swap done for IRT. They can now concentrate on just, well, getting back to the top 3 position they were going to the pits from. Throughout the race there have been quite a bit of pace difference between steering mouse and them, so I will actually be interested to see whether the AMG just lets IRT go easily or not. Might even be different strategies for the two teams. I think steering mouse, yes, it's a solo entry with Paulo Enrique doing the whole 3 hours by himself. Let's not forget he was the one who started the race from P29, if I recall correctly. Yes, it was P29, and he fought up to being in the top 10 positions. I already said very respectable drive from the Brazilian. Answering for a question in comments, it was 6 TCR challengers who started the race, and 5 are still on track, with only JG Junior Rallycross team being out of the race. So IRT will be in striking distance in no time behind steering mouse. And with excellent timing as they are approaching the Tingar O. Certainly the part of the track where it's most easy to make an overtake. if you can get the last corner correctly and you are close enough to your opponent, it's essentially free real estate, and you can rely on physics to make the overtake for you. And I suspect steering mouse is indeed going for the pit stop they haven't gone for. Oh, and Shem Racing, did have laid an eye upon them. Get kicked out from the race with a pretty hefty stop and go penalty they did not take. So there will be the 6th DNF in the GT3 category. Actually, just noticed that David Fernandez is also DNFing from the GT3. He's a quite strong competitor, so very interesting to see him among the drivers who will not finish the race. Will mean that he will need to do at least one more round of the NLS 3-hour series to be able to qualify himself for the 24 hours. If I already mentioned the qualification, far as it stands, both of the Muki Motorsports, that is the number 3 and the number 2 crew, rather the drivers of the two cars, Tony Miller and Eero Lapila, if they finish the race the way they are now, they will be among the people who will be eligible for the 24 hours race. You can see Invictus Racing closing up on P17. Oh, sorry, excuse me, it was a P18 actually, Maverick Motorsports. We'll say the Beamer taking a move. It's a pretty risky trick to try for an overtake after that little jump, and the Porsche also goes out of track. Well, if there's one risky place to go for an overtake, that might be the worst part of the track for that. But both drivers got out of the situation with less damage than they could have ended up with. I mean, to their positions, as I think physically, actually none of the cars suffered any damage from that. Oh, the Porsche went out of the track, if I heard it correctly. So up to P18, Invictus Racing is. No Group Motorsport is also reaching play riders for the little fight for 11th position. You could see these guys clashing for positions around the 10th place for a pretty long time now. This is virtually also, I'm just seeing that No Grip Motorsport with Krzysztof Karpati qualified on the 22nd position. So it's also a very good recovery drive from that qualifying session for the Porsche driver. So the two Hungarian drivers will be fighting this out as the GTR is in the hands of Robert Neuberger, who also is net positive with positions compared to qualifying. He was P16 at the end of the quali session. So 1 second between the GTR and the Porsche. Karpati might actually want to be a bit mindful on where he does his overtake, because, as I already mentioned, that GTR is just blazing fast on straights, so a wrongly timed overtake and Neuberger will just re-overtake him by the end of the long full throttle straight. Mind you, we are only at the carousel, so obviously they both have considerable stretch of track before they go for the straight. It seems like Play Riders actually has the edge on No Grip Motorsport now. The gap between the two cars have stretched to 2.5 seconds. The Porsche was within a second just a minute ago. And Muku Motorsports have taken their penalty, so they at least have that thing out of their way. They will need to do recovery now. Nizula was actually fighting for the 3rd position, but now he will need to make do with what he has, coming back to P6, just 60-second behind his teammate. And some action happening near the 10th position. I think Wild Ones number 13 just gone past Bravo's Motorsports. And definitely closest gap apart from BMS and the Wild Ones are Muiku Motorsports number 2 with Lapila and Slow as Fun with Cernevskis behind the wheel. Just 1 second between the two BMWs. Cernevskis qualified P9 and will need to defend 4th position from Muiku Motorsports. it was kind of hard to leave that on board because it was extremely satisfying to watch Lapila steer that car smoother than a pancake. His inputs were just absolutely clean. And it was also lovely to see a bit of difference between the two drivers, taking a bit more, Czernavsky's taking a bit more defensive and Lapila taking a bit more offensive lines in some corners. And the Finnish driver behind certainly is being patient with this overtake, not going for any unnecessary moves, just slowly putting pressure on Czernavsky's, which actually did pay off because the Latvian driver had made a mistake at the carousel, and now Lapila is through him and up to 4th position. So it's now Muiku Motorsports number 2 that we will see going for the chase for the podium position. It was their 3rd team, or like more than first team, the one without the number, with Misula behind wheel, who was fighting for the podium, but the 10-second stop and go had been an obstacle for the driver. And as we are just past the half-time mark of the race with 1 hour and 28 minutes to go, it's a bit of time for a bit of rehearsal, so to speak. It's Tatum Tech who are leading the race in GT3 with now a 15-second margin. These guys used to be about 4 seconds ahead of P2 at the beginning of the race, so quite a hefty lead for Simone Iezzi in the GT3 category. Behind them currently is Muiku Motorsports number 3 in the hands of Tony Miller, who was also pretty steadily and consistently. Also, is that sponsor in the car saying Osama? Who is calling their company that? Anyways, so this driver had been very consistently in the podium positions for this race being, and currently 3rd is Mid-Lap Crisis. Pretty good drive from Lee O'Brien, going from 6th position in qualifying, currently sitting on 3rd in the GT3 category. And in the TCR, it's IRT at Torx Sim Racing, since the pit stop back to the TCR lead. With a... Oh, actually, Siren Speed Demons is just as I'm introducing the positions, going for a pit stop. With them going from P2 to the pits, and IRT SNDR Racing holding the 3rd position in the TCR category. And also, let's not forget about... Ooh, it seems like connection issues for Predator Racing. Yes, the German driver, his sole entry in GT4, is certainly having some fierce connection issues. Switch back to another driver real quick. But I was just about to say that it's amazing to see them still being in the race, despite being the only sole competitor in the GT4 category, with the McLaren 570S. So as we are back to the action, after taking a listen into all those different sorts of lovely engine noises, we are currently looking at Fisher Racing, taking a fight for 16th position against the Porsche of Maverick Motorsports. The Audi of Fisher Racing, we haven't been able to see that much so far. But right now they are in for a fight for the Porsche. Oh, and I just noticed Predator Racing kicked out of the race, the only sole GT4 entry. There were some very severe connection issues, seemingly, for the German driver of the McLaren. In fact, we will see an overtake on the GP track. Something I think we haven't yet today. I think most of the overtakes were actually done on the Thinger straight so far. At least what happens in front of our eyes. But now Andy Karabrahimi is steadily trying to hunt down Ruan Manske from Maverick Motorsports. Lovely to see those two screaming mid-engine cars go against each other. And very well, Karabrahimi make his move, because he's right on the bumper of the Maverick Motorsports Porsche since quite a few corners now. And flashing those lights, and just noticing that Porsche even more about that. I will go for it, and from the outside of the full throttle right-hander, just before the little jump, he makes the move for which is actually P15. I believe they passed someone going in the pit. So Fisher Racing up to 15th position. Credits to Karabrahimi, as he started from almost the last position without being able to set a valid lap time. So up to P15 is a very good drive from the Greek driver. So there's not a whole lot happening in the top 10 of the GT3 field. Currently, No Grip Motorsports will take a fight for P9 against Play Riders, although the Porsche is getting farther and farther from that Nissan. Very well, in at least Nordschleife length track terms, kind of similar last laps from the two drivers, with No Grip Motorsport being about 3/10 faster than the Nissan ahead of them. the gap between the two drivers had been rather stagnant for the time being. Oh, and it's Posto Rosso Racing Team, who are just 0.8 seconds behind. I think it was Paloro Racing. Oh, and an off-track from the BMW. Yes, it was Paloro Racing with Palinski behind the wheel and to rejoin the track. It was a very unfortunate spin, the car going with its rear side ahead. Lost a precious position and had a kiss with the wall. Race not necessarily going good for the Polish drivers. Oh, and do I actually notice a new competitor on the field with Action Day Warriors with the BMW M4 GT4? This is the even the previous gen M4. Unfortunately, I don't know the model codes. I kind of lost track with the new BMW models with the years. But oh, and it's actually Potato Racing also got back, so the number of GT4 competitors on the field is growing in the middle of the race. It's lovely to see Action Day Warriors just seemingly joining the pack for the love of the game. Of course, they won't really have any qualification for the 24-hour race, at least not from this round, having a 9-lap deficit to Potato Racing, who might also face issues if they want to qualify for the 24-hour race, because they are already up to 18 incident points. Remember that you can have a maximum of 20 of those if you want your race to be eligible for qualification. The rare sight of a TCR fight going on with Siren Speed Demons and Evazorus Racing Team. I think one of them, if I saw correctly, was going in the pits last time I looked, so might be a return after a stop that resulted in this fight for fourth position in TCR. So Siren Speed Demons is currently holding that position, with Evazorus being 5th. Actually, Basket of Phantoms also overtaken Siren Speed Demons, who were third in the TCR category last time we checked. So very good drive from the Czech team as well. I'm seeing Family Team, another Hungarian squad, being getting closer and closer to the car ahead. So Family Team is also one of the rare two driver entries, with Adrian Kovac and Gergely Vince, who was in fact taking the car on the qualifying session, if I recall correctly. Yes, he was. He qualified at Porsche in the 15th position. Currently they're down to 18th. It's also interesting to see that we are approaching slowly the last hour of the race, and the first 6 positions in GT3 have not gone for their long pit stops yet. They are reserving that for the end part of the race, so it seems. I actually think that, in fact, all of them are single driver entries. But them taking their long stops will certainly get both International Racing Team and the Wild Ones number 13, currently sitting 7 and 8, more far up the field, as those latter two teams have done their long pit stops. And in the TCR field, it's only the leader IRT at Torque Sim Racing who haven't embarked on the mandatory long pit. Ooh, Brabus Motorsports having a little kiss with the ball. Currently Sergio Ramos driving the car. They were pretty unbothered by anyone else, having quite a large gap both ahead and behind them, so little driver mistake. And P1 in GT3, Tadam Restek is currently pitting. That will give Muki Motorsports number 3 the virtual lead once again in the race. Last time this Finnish squad had posted quite a strong feat on the first round. Tony Miller and Eero Lapila, who is currently sitting on fourth position with the Muki Motorsports number 2 car. They were competing in just one car the last round, and Lapila scored the fastest lap in qualification, while Miller scored the fastest lap in the race. So very strong competitors. Currently, however, right now it's Tadam Restek who has the fastest lap of the race so far with an 8-minute 4.29. And last time the best racing lap, the fastest lap in the race was in fact faster than the fastest qualifying lap. This time the top dogs in the GT3 quali session were absolutely flying, setting both Tadam Restek and the Muki Motorsports number 3 setting a sub 8-minute 4 lap time. But first and last round it was Yadzi for Tadam Restek and Tony Miller for Muiku, who did the qualifying sessions, so extremely fast drivers both in the qualifying and the race. So Tadam Restek from P1 actually went and done their first long pit stop, which is what I mentioned just not that long ago. They are the first ones from the top 5 or top 6 in GT3 who has now put the long pit out of their way. They might have the need for a splash and dash. I'm not sure how long of a stint in the first races for GT3s. And they just came back to the track ahead of Muiku Motorsports. I wonder if Nizula will be able to get any hold on Tadam Restek. There were quite a significant pace difference between the two cars so far, but bear in mind that BMW has came out of the pits with cold tires. The BMW ahead, both of them are M4s. So they will need some time, yes, they will need some time to get those tires back to temp without being or losing too many time fighting with Nizula from Muiku Motorsports. And Nizula is getting closer and closer to Ienzi from Tandem Restec. It's very interesting to see the Muka Motorsports driver just chasing down the everlasting first position sitter for the best. Well, basically Tandem Restec was only not leading the race when they went for pit stops, but there is now a very fast Finnish driver right on their rear bumper. So, and we're entering a very fast, essentially full throttle section of Nordschleife. Shortly after these dipping right-handers. And Nizula is really trying to put pressure on Ienzi, but it will be interesting to see the Italian driver just breaking any sort of pressure. They have been one of the top contenders of our field, as far as we could experience their presence. And they might have a need for presenting their defense skills very shortly. Because sooner or later, if not sooner, in the long straight, that blue BMW will reach them. And a little traffic, both GT3 and TCR for Tandem Restec and Muki Motorsports. And now Ienzi got actually plenty of breathing room. That lapping was actually lucky for them. It was a very tricky situation, having to lap a TCR and a GT3 at the same time. Ooh, and Zula having less and less luck with those lapped TCRs, going into the pits for possibly what is their either the last pit stop. So in the meantime, for your request, here's Slow as Fun behind the wheel with Ralph Zernavskis. Currently P8, we did see the Latvian driver in better positions in the race so far. But still, they are one position up from their P9 they scored in qualifying. In the first race, they actually finished P6, however, starting from second position, so this driver is also most definitely forced to be reckoned with. But right now they have a 37-second gap behind them and Midlap Prices in P7. No Grip Motorsport is actually closer to them, but still far with 12 seconds behind them, so quite a lot of space both ahead and behind of the Latvian driver. There's a fight shaping up between Maverick Motorsports and Invictus Racing Team for 13th position. While we are watching Maverick Motorsports close down Invictus Racing, it's actually interesting to see that we have plenty of DNFing racers in the GT3 category. I'm counting eight drivers or teams who will not be able. Ooh, a little off track from Maverick Motorsports. That will certainly make their job harder to catch the team ahead. They are also reaching a lapped car, so if Manska behind the wheel is lucky, they might get an advantage of that, them reaching a GT3. But as we also always mention, you can win as much with every lapped car as you can lose. Oh, and lost it again. Pretty tough lap for the Porsche driver, having a little kiss with the valve, with the rear end of the car. So the 13th position of Invictus Racing Team will remain unharmed for the time being. And Wild Ones number 13 is approaching No Grip Motorsport for a fight for P8 possibly. Also notice that the racing numbers, the driver numbers that you can see on the leaderboard just before the class and the team is that's actually assigned by the system according to rating. So the ELO rating the drivers have on World Team Series. So why I'm bringing this up is that No Grip Motorsport, Karpati behind the wheel, is essentially the 20th according to rating in the GT3 field. And not only that, in the entire field. So it's actually quite a good feat from him to see him in P8. However, Wild One's number 13 is very rapidly approaching behind him. And Diogo Cerqueira will certainly give him a hard time if he wants to protect that 8th position. Since we're watching these two guys, the gap between them has come down to half, with now being only 2.5 seconds. And BMW is very prominently approaching the Porsche. It's also noticeable now that the drivers are now having a definite need for their headlights. We are actually using the both real time and weather conditions, apart from rain, of course, due to the limitations of Assetto Corsa. But as far as I know, it's actually a pretty nice weather over at the Nürburgring. But it is in fact getting darker, and the race, after 45 minutes, the race will end in complete evening conditions. So that might pose a slight extra challenge for the drivers, who will be already exhausted from some drivers will be behind the wheel for more than 3 hours if you also count the qualifying session and any practice before the race. So Muki Motorsports number 2 and 3 are going to the pits. That's Terum Restech being back to the first position. And frankly, at least based on what we saw so far, it will be very interesting to see that position slipping out of their hands. Muki Motorsports number 3 have gotten the long pit out of their way. So Wide Ones is closer and closer. Those headlights are getting more and more blinding in the rear view mirrors of the Porsche. So it's an easy straight line overtake for Wild Ones number 13, taking 8th position from No Grip Motorsport. In the meantime, if you notice the real penalty notices, Beskidi Phantoms in TCR got a 10-second stop and go penalty. So it is Siren Speed Demons back to 3rd position in the class. And the Porsche of No Grip Motorsports is back to the pits. So Tatum Restek just getting past off Maverick Motorsports, the race leader lapping the Porsche in 13th position, who is just about 5 seconds behind the 12th are Invicto's racing team, 2 Brazilian drivers behind the wheels of the 2 cars. Oh, and Maverick Motorsports have lost it. We're seeing quite a lot of spinning Porsches. I think I'm having a strong deja vu. I think just a few minutes ago we saw one team spinning in this exact same place of the track with exact same car, exact same livery. And I don't know if it was actually Maverick Motorsports themselves. It seems like these cars are proving tricky to handle. And somehow still they are moving closer and closer to Invictus Motorsports. Invictus Racing, that is, I'm sorry for the inaccuracy. Currently 3.6 seconds. But the Porsche driver can most certainly see that BMW in straight enough sections, like this one. So they can set their eyes on the target, on the prize, getting P12. They are quite far behind Playwriters in 11th position, so I don't know if they could be able to get there just solely by pace in the remaining 40 minutes. But anything can happen to the people ahead of them, let's bear in mind, as well as for them, of course. Interestingly enough, Maverick Motorsport finished 12th in the first round 2 of the NLS 3-hour series. So would they get Invictus Racing, they could repeat what they did in the last round. gets Maverick Motorsports into the pits. I wonder if Invictus from ahead of them will also go in a pit stop. It's now the job of Pelobro Racing to let go one of the BMWs, lapping them. So in the GT3 standings, it's only Muiki Motorsports, the one with Jimmy Nizula, who haven't taken their long pit stop. All other drivers, at least in the top 10 of the GT3 field, have done their mandatory singular long pit stop. Actually, he is the only GT3 in the whole field who haven't done it so far. He had just kept the pit stop for a pretty long amount of time. Only 34 minutes remaining from the race. In the TCR class, everyone had done their long pit stops, so no long stops remaining for any of the TCR challengers. Also true for the one and only Potato Racing in GT4. I actually see Action Day Warriors in GT4 are currently out. I know they just joined for 3 laps and then they left. And seemingly that is what the case is. Well, interesting from the British team, but everyone is welcome to have a taste of racing in the NLS series. Hopefully we will see them going for a full race soon. Oh, and the Basketti Phantoms is out of the race. What a turn of events for the Czech team. So for them also, this is meaning that they will need to go for at least one more NLS 3-hour race throughout the season if they want to compete in the 24-hour race at the end. Seems like the connection issues are gone for Potato Racing. Vincent Meyer, the German driver behind the wheel. A little flash of the lights, and you know, I want to believe that was a little way of saying hi to us. Excuse me, by the way, Basket Phantoms are not out of the race, as it were, completely. They can still return to track and finish the race. However, they are stacking up quite a bit of connection issues. So I think they are having some severe internet problems. So that's good news for Evazora's racing team for GT3. That's the Spanish team up to 4th position. Ooh, a little off track from one of the Beamers. Unfortunately, didn't catch which BMW it was. It doesn't really have that. The majority of them are using that Bilstein livery. I really hope that for the 24-hour race, at least, if not sooner, every team will bring their own cool and beautiful liveries for it to be easier to distinguish them. So we're currently watching Almost Motorsport, actually standing less than 7 seconds behind 14th position. I think it was Fisher Racing ahead of him. No, it was Maverick Motorsports, excuse me, now only 5 seconds between the two teams. So Rostislav Antonov behind the wheel of the Mercedes, getting closer and closer to 14th position. Little fun fact about him is that he was the last driver in the first round who could finish 1 lap within the leader in GT3, David Fernandez at the time. He finished P11 in the first race and currently seeking to hunt down Maverick Motorsports for P14. Having started the race from 19th position, of course, one could argue that plenty of teams have gotten out of the race prematurely ahead of him. So even if those weren't on track overtakes, still. It's, let's just say it's key for you to actually finish a race in order to score any positions. So that does involve a sort of consistency and know-how in multiclass traffic in this case, for example. But it can also, of course, boil down to pure luck, and especially in sim racing, all sorts of technical problems. That's one kind of cool aspect about it, that just as in real life racing, where you can have all sorts of technical difficulties with your car, here also you can also have technical difficulties, but not necessarily with the car, but your computer or your internet connection. So that sort of luck factor, as it were, is also something that is very much present here behind the monitors, as well as it is in real life. So Muiku Motorsports, who we talked about just recently, is I think going for the long pits, which will be of course their last pit stop of the race. They will go full distance without needing to get back into the pits now. And also slow as fun is down under 10 seconds, or currently 8 seconds, compared to Muiku Motorsports number 2, so that is something we could also keep an eye out for. So slowly that AMG of Almis Motorsports is getting larger and larger in the rearview mirror of Maverick Motorsports. Ooh, and Maverick has went out when sending the Porsche right across the track in a very bad position. This is a very good reflex call from the driver of Almis Motorsports to avoid that Porsche. There's a thing, after 2.5 hours of driving on the Nordschleife, you cannot help not getting tired, both mentally and physically. So the skill is not only doesn't only consist of not making a mistake, but being able to swiftly avoid people making mistakes yourself in situations like these. It's almost not almost, it's exactly just as much important as a part of being to able to race, not just fast but consistently. So especially that when you are putting so much pressure on the driver ahead of you, especially so late in the race, for every single position there's a little fight going on. You need to count for the factor that yes, they might lose the car just ahead of me, and especially on a track like this, it's very easy to have a car just spinning and stopping across the track, essentially blocking half of the track, which might happen right ahead of you in a matter of a fraction of a second, and you need to make an instant decision where to avoid them. You need to hit the brakes. You need to do all of this without hitting them or losing control of your car yourself. So we had the fortune to sit along Ralph Sarnevskis for a fraction of his lap. Was actually getting my hopes up for getting closer and closer to Muki Motorsports number 2, but the gap is back to 10 seconds. So the Latvian driver might remain in the 6th position until the end of the race. It's only 20 minutes to go, so it's really the last stretch for all of the drivers. Quite a tricky place to overtake a left car. Oh, I can hear someone maybe going out of the track. I swear I heard some car making a tour in the grass. Whatever. Oh, Fisher Racing getting a drive to one of the fan favorite teams. Wonder what they did to invoke the anger of Resurrection. So with just a little bit more than 10 minutes left from the second round of the NLS 3-hour series, it is Tandem Restech who are still very confidently leading the race overall and in GT3, with Muki Motorsports number 3 being 12 seconds behind them. Another BMW M4 and International Racing Team tailing these guys by quite a hefty gap. As you could see, both P1 and 2 were on the GP track, but IRT will only approach the long full throttle straight just yet. In TCR, it's IRT at Torque Sim Racing, who is currently having their hands on the lead. Well, not just currently, but for the entirety of the race. Also, look at that cool underglow. It's Need for Speed Underground vibes here. So in the second position in TCR is IRT SNDR Racing. These two IRT squads were pretty much locking out the front row of the TCR class for the entirety of the race so far. And in P3 in TCR it's Evasora's Racing Team, who also have been going for a pretty decent run, with them overtaking the now DNFing Baskin Phantoms and also the Siren Speed Demon teams. And last but not least, also let's not forget about the one and only Potato Racing, our one only cool little GT4 competitor. Even after some severe connection issues, are back on track and just completing this race whatsoever. I think actually now that they are the only entrants in their category, one thing that's almost a kind of cheat code for them to get a qualification for the 24-hour race, which would actually completely stand. They cannot be more than 5 laps behind themselves, but they have 21 incident points, which will make this race ineligible for qualification. So they will need to do at least 2 more rounds of the last 3-hour series if they want to be here with us on the 24-hour race as well. So the gaps open up between pretty much all competitors. By the end of the race, it's a pretty calm last quarter of the race we are witnessing. It's only 8 minutes down. 8 minutes 30 seconds, just a bit more than one singular GT3 lap worth of time. Which means that this might be the penultimate lap for Tandem Restech to race leader. We're just overtaken by Muki Motorsports. What happened here? Oh, that might have been some serious mistake by Tandem Restech, as Muki were 10 seconds behind them. No, just that we brought them up now. Wow, the race lead of GT3 has changed hands in the last 8 minutes of the race. And Muki Motorsports is getting farther and farther that BMW of Tandem Restech might have some damage. What an extremely unfortunate turn of events for Simone Iezzi. And Christos Papanastasiou behind him is not lapped, so the IRT driver behind Yadzi has about 1.5 minutes of gap, which might be a tad just a bit too long for a gap to be worked down in such short time. So Tadrum Restek might at least score the second position, but still. And this is what we discussed earlier, that no matter you can lead the race for 2 hours and 59 minutes, you just need one little slip up, one little mistake, one little unlucky moment with a left car maybe, and your race lead that you had for the majority of the race, and with not a small gap, is just gone. So IRT really has to push now if they can be hoping that Tadrum Restek will maybe commit another mistake. Or that the damages to the BMW currently in P2 are grave enough for them to reach them. However, we're talking about 90 seconds of a gap within what will be about a lap and a half. And just as I was saying that how much the field has calmed down for the last few minutes of race, might have completely jinxed that for Tadrum Restek, who are now 20 seconds behind Muiku Motorsports number 3. It might be a good time for the Finnish squad if they can score this win after having a P2 at the first round of the NLS 3-hour series. Also, I can see the gap closing between Slow as Fun and Wild Ones number 13. But it might be a bit too late for both Wild Ones and Muiku Motorsports to have that final push. I mean, not in the sense that anything can happen to the car ahead of you, so it's always just good not to kick your feet up and just cruise, but to push and still try to be as close as you can to them, because as you can see, even the most experienced drivers can have just a little oopsie daisy moment. And now the gap between International Racing Team and Tadrum Restek has came down to half of what it was. This leaderboard can sometimes not be trusted that much. It can be all over the place. Oh, and IRT is also back to the pits. Well, that can give a huge breather to Ted and Restek. Oh, I don't know what happened to IRT, whether it's the need for a splash and dash, or yes, seems like it was. I think they were just a few liters of fuel short. That's very good news for Ted and Restek, and terrible news for IRT. Now, mid-lap crisis can just push the hell out of the BMW, getting closer to IRT, as well as Muki Motorsports, who are getting closer and closer to Wild One's number 13, being the gap being less than 5 seconds. Well, the top 10 of the GT3 field is spicing up for just the last 5 minutes of the race. And Wild Ones is now just half a second down behind Slow as Fun. And Muiki Motorsports can very easily third-party this fight. Because I'm sure Ralph Cernevskis will not let that Wild Ones car get by easily. So it's still Slow as Fun being ahead in P6, with Wild Ones being right on the bumper and Muiku Motorsports tailing them by just about 2.5 seconds. So a three-way fight is shaping up for the 6th position in GT3. As we have less than 10 seconds on the clock, meaning that this will be the last lap of the race leader. So these three guys have almost exactly 1 lap to get this whole thing sorted and to see who can take that 6th position. And as much as Wild One's number 13 is close to Slow as Fun, Muki Motorsports is just approaching them just as quickly. So these 3 BMWs will very shortly form a train, and we are approaching the Nordschleife part of the track. So no one here was lucky enough to score an overtake on the GP track. Now it is for these 3 people, the difficulty level had been set from easy to hard, as they will need to try and make that overtake between the walls. And I'm pretty sure that none of these people want to wait out the long straight. So actually it's Muki Motorsports getting to Wild Ones first. It's Cernevskis from Slow as Fun being able to get themselves together a bit, maybe hoping that the 2 guys behind him will fight for as long as they can. Good news for the Latvian. Nizula was already showing himself in the mirror for Cerqueira, driving the Wild Ones car. Just look at these 3 cars within almost 1 second compared to each other. Very last lap. We are approaching about the halfway mark of the lap. No overtakes done so far, but just you wait for that. Obviously, they all need to be very mindful because they don't want to end their own races or the others. Oh, little mistake from Wild Ones, but the track isn't quite wide enough for Mookie Motorsports to make a move, so they just, unfortunately for them, have to hit the brakes and hope that Wild Ones will make another little mistake. Oh, just like this! They sent the car. Oh, they lost the rear end of the car. And now it's Mookie Motorsports overtaking them for 7th position, while their number 3 car had taken the win. Excuse me for missing that, but I was too busy showing that amazing fight. So it's Mookie Motorsports number 3 with Tony Miller behind the wheel taking the win for the 2nd round of the NLS 3-hour series, and serving some tasty donuts for us. And the slowest fun car is now a bit harder than they were from Wild Ones. Ooh. Zula driving the BMW very aggressively, trying to get closer to slowest fun. Just as a really quick peek, in TCR it will be IRT Ethorx Sim Racing who will cross the finish line first and take the win. But let's get back to Slow as Fun and Mookie Motorsports trying to fight it out. Sort of the leaderboard at the end of the race, especially with lap cars, is going crazy, so excuse us for that, but this fight was going on for the 6th position still. Nothing has changed with that. And Cernevskis had been able to keep Zula behind him for the entirety of the lap, but this slipstream might intervene and just nullify all his defenses throughout all this lap. Zula is very close. He really wants to get their hand on this position. Just both drivers, after 3 hours, still driving the hell out of those BMW M4 GT3s. Both of them taking the corners very aggressively. Nizula is right on the rear bumper of Cernevskis. This will definitely be an overtake on the Tingaraho straight. And there we go, cars side by side, and Mookie Motorsports is making the move over Slow as Fun for a last-ditch overtake, taking 2 positions on the very last lap. But it's not over yet. Cernevskis is fighting back, just stealing just enough slipstream to put the cars side by side as we go for the last corners. And they have actually re-overtaken Nizula and protected his, what I believe was 6th position. What an amazing fight we saw from these two people. Just congratulations to both of them. And Oh, wow. This was a beautiful dance from both of the drivers. What a fight we just witnessed on the very last lap with these 3Ws. Wild Ones unfortunately getting out of it quite prematurely. So slowly, one by one, the remaining drivers will come to cross the finish line. Now you're missing the positions of the people finishing in the leaderboard. Don't worry for that. We will, of course, go through all of the drivers just after the last car has rolled in the pits. Rolled through the finish line. So it was now Presto Rosso Racing Team. And we are waiting for about a dozen cars to still go through the finish line. So let's take a less time today to have a listen for some marvelous engine noises. why that was a bit anticlimactic, but I guess there's a time limit for a reason after the leader finishes the race. So let's jump to the race results. So, after 3 hours of racing, this is how we round up. The number 3 Muiku Motorsports car with Tony Miller behind the wheel just taken the win out of the hands of Tadej Restek in the last 5 minutes of the race, with Simona Iazzi having some troubles. But they still could get the car to the finish line ahead of International Racing Team, who also had to get just a splash of fuel into the car. So they were actually getting close very fast to Tadej Restek. I would have been very curious how would that boiled out, but we unfortunately did not get to see that. Still, a podium position for IRT here. So following them is Midlap Crisis and Muiku Motorsports number 2. Ralph Sanovskis from Slovas 1 could bring their car with an amazing fight with Muiku Motorsports and Wild Ones number 13 with Zula and Cerqueira for 6th, 7th, and 8th positions. And closing down the top 10 in GT3 were Burpro and Play Riders, who could have gotten that Nissan GTR to the top 10 of the GT3 standings. And behind them, Invictus Racing Team, followed by Almost Motorsport and RR Performance on the 13th position. Fisher Racing, Maverick Motorsports Family Team, 16th. Excuse me, after all this hassle, forgot to switch to just the SV9 standings. So it was last Family Team 16th with the Scott, followed by Palovro Racing PL, Poland, that is, so Racing Team and Tornado E Motorsports and Crazy Matador were the last team who could have finished this race in the GT3 category. Quite a lot of DNFs. After this race, I think we did not see this many unfinished races from drivers after the first round. So a more ruthless day this was for the GT3 teams. Moving on to TCR, Anam Kasoni has yet again with a back-to-back win from the first and second rounds. Now have taken first position in TCR with IRT, SMDR Racing and Evazores Racing Team behind them taking the second and third positions, and Sirens Speed Demons under the hands of James Leaphart, bringing that Cupra TCR to the fourth positions, with Basket Phantoms not being able to finish the race due to some connection issues, unfortunately for them, as they were standing on quite good positions during the race. And last but not least, the one and only Potato Racing, who, well, with just a tiny little competition from Action Day Warriors for at least a few laps, obviously managed to bring in that McLaren. I have a huge respect for Meyer for being here for the entire 3 hours, not giving up despite he being the only GT4 in the standings. He's a pretty cool guy for that. So, moving on to what will happen in the close and not so close future, The next round of the NLS 3-hour series will happen 2 weeks later, as usual, on the 5th of July, same time, 6 p.m. CEST. Now, if you are aching for some racing during the week, we also have you sorted with some action on the Nürburgring. We have 3 NLS sprint series for you. All of them are 2 different classes, 1.5 hour on the Nürburgring. Everything else is the same. As you could see here, we actually have a new one starting with a Porsche Cup and the Ferrari F355 Challenge car. Quite an exotic choice. I can recommend trying it out. Pretty cool car. Actually, the race will be tomorrow, starting 7 p.m. But you can also embark on a journey with GT4 versus GT3 and an MX5 Cup and TCR race. And just a little notice about the 24 hours. If you are curious about your qualification and are not already on the International Racing Team Discord channel, I can only recommend you that, because we have a spreadsheet dedicated just for that, for the drivers to see whether they are eligible or not for the qualification. I'm pretty sure that I saw plenty of returning faces from round 1, so I'm pretty sure that several drivers are already having the qualification for the 24-hour race. But for those who don't and liked what they saw here, we still have 5 more rounds of the NLS 3-hour series for you. And if you just want to, you don't care about the 24-hour race, just want to join for the sake of some fun on the North Side, feel absolutely free to join us for the next rounds of this 3-hour series or any other of our competitions. So with that out of the way, it's time to say the sad goodbyes for tonight. Congratulations for all the racers who finished the race. A very fierce racetrack and 3 hours of concentration and physical strain. Huge respect for them for that. And of course, thank you for everyone who have tuned in for our streams. We will obviously be streaming all remaining rounds of the NLS 3-hour series as well as the 24-hour race. So thank you very much for tuning in for our streams. If you want to get more news about what we're doing, feel free to join our Discord channel, follow us on Instagram. All links are in the descriptions. And with that being said, see you guys next time at the 5th of July. Until then, stay safe and have a good time.